Welcome again to EQaboveIQ-Parenting with Emotional Intelligence and Healing Inner Child. My name is Trina Casey and I am your host. And it once again has been a while, but this was not my fault. And here's why. One of the things that I have noticed about people who lack emotional intelligence and run, head on in this hegemonic hellscape, as I call it, they do things without pondering the repercussions. Just FYI, EQ Above IQ was down for about a month due to the fact that a previous guest of this podcast got a job a few years back, matter of fact, that required this guest to not have any audio recordings. They work for the government of another country. And so, I had complete permission to previously distribute her podcast episode, but she had asked me a few years back to take it down. And out of the kindness of my heart, I did so. I never want anybody to suffer the repercussions of anything that is that I'm doing. Excuse, the laundry machine just went off. It has to play some weird sound. Anyways, life. Anyway, so this person previously asked that I take it down, which I did, no problem. I know that this person had some problem that was unbeknownst to me, with me, but it's a long, drawn out and unnecessary story to regurgitate. But I did so out of the kindness of my heart, and it had inadvertently, when Spotify did some changes, their whole platform changed, FYI. And the way that it looks, the way that you sign in and do a bunch of things. Well, somebody that was helping me out accidentally put that episode back up. And she sent me an email stating that it was up again and she had requested it. And I said, oh my goodness, let me double check. And in fact, it was up and I immediately took it back down. Well, the vengefulness of this person decided to report my podcast to Spotify, not knowing or maybe not caring that it would take my podcast down. And she claimed infringement, but she signed a release. So it was no infringement. So now I'm back up. So that is why I have not been recording any podcast episodes for EQ Above IQ. I have been dealing with this legal mumbo jumbo BS that could have been solved with a quick, oh, it's down. But I don't know. People do things when they are power tripping and in deep ego. And this is what I think happened. So I happily removed that podcast episode and deleted it so that won't happen again. Unfortunately, the person that was helping me was completely distraught. So long story short, when you do things, there's not just you involved. There's a lot of other people involved in what you do. So the mindfulness that is necessary for your actions, you just have to have it. It's called emotional intelligence. And this is the theme of this podcast. Why this person would think I would put a podcast episode up again after several years, I have no idea. But it was just really a nasty personal attack. And no matter how much this person says it wasn't, it was, because it was down. Long story short, I'm back. I'm back. And boy, is there a lot of stuff going on. This reality is going through some crazy metamorphosis. Some would say that we are shifting out of this form of humanness and into another one. Some people talk about it. We're in the third dimension and we are shifting, and some of us will shift out of the fifth. But I don't want there to be an elitism thing about it. It's mostly about your emotional intelligence. If you're not operating from an emotionally intelligent place, and let me go over those key components, those principles. Emotional intelligence has 5 key principles. 1, self-awareness. Temet, Nosce, which is Latin for know thyself. If you do not have that aspect, it's going to be hard to go through these other principles with success, with understanding. And then there is self-regulation. To be able to regulate your responses to things that may or may not pertain to you. And this is one that everybody is struggling with big time. The lack of self-regulation is causing a lot of femicide, which is something I'm going to talk about today. the divide between the masculine and feminine and the imbalance that has been causing for centuries now. And then you have the principle of motivation or purpose. What is bringing you purpose or motivating you to exist in this world and hopefully vibrate higher? Your motivations create your mode of operandi in this world. And some people are motivated by some pretty dark energy, and unbeknownst to them, and sometimes purposefully. I know a lot of people who are purposefully, aka hegemony, causing a lot of trauma, pain, and chaos in order to retain the power that they have had over us on a mind, body, spirit plane. And then we have compassion or empathy. There are the different types of empathy. Please go back to previous episodes of EQ Above IQ where I kind of outlined that. I'm not going to go through the different types of empathy right now because it's kind of long. And I really want to get to the point of this episode. Then we have the last and very important one, and one that we're struggling as a culture and society, is social or community skills. You see, the problem is that everybody's not operating from the other principles in a grounded way, mind, body, spirit way, and so we're struggling. And so that is how you take all of those principles together and you basically get along. And as I mentioned before, femicide is up. The divide between the masculine and feminine energy is like no other in a long time. And that's mainly due to the fact that the feminine energy is coming to light. And one of the things, I had a discussion with my son, and he came to me, at this point, I don't want to be a guy or a girl, but I just don't want to be involved in this because, I'm trying to keep him conscious of the hegemony and patriarchy and the things that they do to separate the masculine and the feminine from each other. And this is a purposeful thing that they do, because if we all get together and we start balancing out and we start getting back to the emotionally intelligent aspects of ourselves, they are no longer going to be in charge. They have been manufacturing consent through patriarchy, religion, all different structures for a very, very long time. And so what I said to my son is like, you get to be yourself. And you don't need to follow or be any of these roles that basically have separated men from themselves. All fetuses are female when they are first created in the womb of a woman. And so that means, they develop into a male, they mutate into a male in utero. And so what does that mean? That means that we are all intrinsically connected by two energies all the time. And that's how I look at the masculine and feminine. I don't look at them as traits, like boys like blue and girls like pink, or women do this or guys do that. That's patriarchy. That is a cover for some pretty deep-seated insecurities. I mean, let's look at the picture on a grander scale. The female body is the closest thing to God or creator that you can get, because we literally create life. We literally create life. And so that means, if you go from a biblical sense, I don't have to say it. And my instincts is that a very long time ago in antiquity, and before the written word, there were probably a group of very insecure or very power hungry, because that's an ultimate power right there, masculine energy people, and they were probably pretty insecure and jealous about the capacity of female. And I just saw a study where it proves that women have more gray matter and a higher functioning brain than the male brain. And I have my theories all around that and why. But I know that the majority of fetuses that are miscarried are male fetuses. And I think that's a biological imperative in way that female body is just like, no, I don't recognize this now. What is this? And I think that it starts out as a female in the body in the first place, because I think the female body, like anything, would reject something that isn't a part or in the same genetic makeup as the female. So, yeah, that's my theory. I am not a geneticist or anything of the kind. I just am super nerdy and I like to read a lot. So what I'm thinking has happened is that this is created a deep seated insecurity. And so there's been a lot of bashing of women throughout time because of our capacity that more gray matter allows us to multitask and just, generally be kind of like be badasses at what we do. And I think that's exploited beyond belief. And if anything, that history has proven a male with low self-esteem is probably the most destructive force on the planet. And sadly, hegemony is full of them. The top echelon of our society is full of these very small-minded and very insecure men. And these are the examples that we have for generations. I really hope that my son will vibrate out of that, embrace all of who he is, rather than try to play a role of a toxic male instead of just being authentically himself. And it's really hard to Temet Nosce, to know thyself when you're young, because you're looking for guides. You're looking for something. And unfortunately, I would say that the majority of young boys nowadays don't have the best example of masculine energy, because it's been out of whack and out of balance for so many hundreds of years that I don't blame my son for saying that. I don't. Like, as a person who has always embraced both the masculine and feminine aspects of myself, like, I can do just as much, if not more, than a male in many areas of life. Like, I love building stuff. I love making things with my hands, and metalworking and wood carving and martial arts and all these things that were quote unquote considered masculine traits. I've been able to box with my son and teach him how to box, but I recognize that he's not interested in cooking, though he just cooked a really good meal him by himself. I would love for that to be more embraced, the energy of the feminine and the energy of art and light and things like that. But the culture does not allow humans born with male members to just exist, to connect with the divine spark. And I do believe that this coalescing of energies of masculine and feminine are supposed to balance each other out. There's a reason why male bodies are stronger in some areas. Not saying that women bodybuilders are not, totally yoked and strong enough. But my point is that there was a reason, a divine reason. But it wasn't just to be brutes, you know what I mean? Angry. And I do believe the reason why the majority of young men are angry is because they are cut off from an essential part of who they are. They are cut off from the light within, and the light within is feminine. It is feminine. But just like all things that live in duality, you can't live without light, without the dark. At least that's what we're told. I'd like to try energetically. I'd like to have a Tartania type existence for a while, utopian feeling. And I do. I'm not being idealistic. I just think that we are led by this imbalance of masculine dark energy that has translated into some weird, distorted concept of power. And that elements of being masculine and feminine, they don't have an opportunity to intermingle in the beautiful way that it could. And it's not about sex. It's not about the physicality. It's about the frequency. There is such a lack of care and love in this version of the masculine. It is so toxic. It is so driven by war and violence. I think of how a male born boy would live in this world, and I truly want to cry. And I did for my son, because I was like, how does he get to be him? I mean, and it's the same for women as well, because a woman who, or a female who wants to be like a fireman and all these type of things, we've had to fight to just be able to exist in this world. And it's extremely unfair because we're blamed. The female is, if you dress a certain way, if you did it, and it's worked into all of the structures, you know, modesty in all religious dogmas is about covering yourself up, right? And that's not because there's something abhorrent or dirty about the feminine body. It's because the males cannot control their physical urges, the impulsivity of some invisible signal that, yeah, baby, I'm ready to get down with you, you know, just because I'm wearing a skirt or I'm wearing a this or I'm wearing that. How many times we get blamed for our own grape? I'm going to say grape because this is a PG show. And when we were just existing, we were trying to be. And I don't know, it's written down through time, you know, from Lady Magdalene to every character that you want to see, from Hall and Oates to whoa, whoa, here she comes, she's a man-eater. You know, it's just this false narrative about how women are temptresses and it is our fault. Really, no, sir. You have somewhat of a mind of your own if you're not being led by the herd to behave and be like a certain way. And that those urges, you have a prefrontal cortex at a certain age that comes online that says, that's, you know what, she's a human being, she's a person, I can't treat her like that, I can't talk to her like that. But we live in a whole corn culture, you know, replace that with a P, that all it is violence towards women. It's just disgusting. And where's the connection to spirit? Where's the coalescing? Where is the beauty of that type of connection? It's gone. It's turned to revenge. It's turned to violence. It's turned to just like nothing that any of us in the divine feminine want to engage with. Nothing. And our children have access to this whatever they want. All of these things that have come down the line, and this morality and ethics, but you could just type that word on the internet and come up with 100 sites. So that tells you something. Patriarchy is led with an insatiable desire to just grape, and as young as possible. So yeah, I get why my son would say, I don't want to be involved with that, but I don't want to be gay either. It makes things so uncomfortable for the masculine energy who wants to express itself with its feminine. You're a brooding loner or you're a weirdo if you do not act in accordance to the bro code. And I'm very grateful that my son is not operating that way all the time. But I hear it in the video game playing and all that stuff. And yeah, I guess it's par for the course in this type of hegemonic hellscape, I call it. It is. And to change that, we really need to Temet Nosce, know thyself. We need to go inward and connect with all aspects of ourselves. I wrote on my blog, and you can read it as well on Medium. I'm on Medium. If you want to follow me there and read some of the things I'm writing, I'll put a link in the bio or in this episode notes. Basically, I wrote a blog about these little girls running after my son. And I say it for sure because it's been happening since he was very little. The little girls like him, especially the blondies. Probably to the angst of their parents. I don't know. But my son is very cute. He's biracial. And not that that makes him cute, but he's just really cute. He's got the curly locks and, I used to call him caramel candy because he was so, or mocha latte, should I say mocha latte. But they were just chasing him. And then one time a parent said to me, isn't it cute? They would be so cute together now. Like my son is literally 7 or not even 7 years old at the time. I think he was maybe 5. And I'm sitting there going, no, it's not cute. Not that way. I said, well, they can just be friends. And for a long time, up to this day, I tell my son that when he has a female friend, they're not girlfriend, boyfriend, and then I ask a series of questions. Oh, you have a girlfriend. What's her favorite color? What's her last name? What's her this? What's that? What's that? What's that? What's that? And he can't answer those questions because sometimes it's just about the social pressure of coupling. And I don't want him to see girls as just somebody you can hook up with. And it happened just a month ago. A girl had a little crush on him and his ego got into it and his friends are all talking about having girlfriends. So he pretended to have interest in this girl beyond friendship. And I asked him a series of questions and I said, do you even like her? And the response was, well, kinda, she's cool. And I said, that's not good enough. Part of the problem is that we have a lot of men hooking up with girls, or women, should I say, and wifing them, like seriously marrying them, and they don't even like these women. And that is bonkers. And since I've experienced it a few times, I just would love for my audience and the people listening to this of the male persuasion to look at women as people. Go into your own feminine. Connect with your higher self, whether it's through meditation or anything else, and Temet Nosce. Know thyself. Know your trauma, know your childhood, know your desires, your physicalities, all that stuff. Get deeper on what drives you to approach women and be in relationship because we're fed up. I'm honest, we are fed up. And as a woman on the Choose the Bear Club, I think that I'm done. And I think a lot of women are done because even the social structure around aging has been miseducated. At one point, his father said some asinine things about age group, don't date anybody past 30, stuff like that. And my son was like 10 or 11 at the time. And I'm sitting there going, huh? And that's because young, naive women and sometimes girls do not know how to advocate for themselves at this stage. At that age, they don't know how to advocate. And they don't have the experience that a woman my age would have and the boundaries to say no. So when a older man in their 50s says, I only want to date women between the ages of 18 and 25, what he's really saying is I would like somebody that allows me to have my way and that I don't need to respect. There's lots of very sick legislation going into place. Project 2025 is full of disgusting child trafficking type legislations and rhetoric that would allow pretty mediocre and insecure men to be with children. And so my hope by recording this episode, and that I tried to do twice because unfortunately I don't know what happened to the last 15 minutes of my episode when I already recorded. So I'm trying to remember everything I said previously. But I will never understand why a little girl or a little boy would be appealing. And I did a whole episode on this topic, so I won't go into detail, but there is something old about this. And I don't know if it's a desire unmet to reconnect, and it is turned into a physical distortion, an expression of desire to connect with the feminine that is turned to a purely primal, sexual experience. And if that's the case, this is when I implore people to remember you are both. You're both the light and the dark, the masculine and the feminine. You are both negative and a positive. And so go deeper and take steps to cultivate a polymathic mind, to stop, stand together, oppose oppression, persecution, and just really think about what you want this world to look like. I also do a podcast called Beyond Hegemony with two amazing co-hosts, Gary and Shahana. That is also here on Spotify, so go check that out. If you would like to support this podcast or that podcast, please check out the episode description. There is a link that is there that you can basically support. And I would really appreciate it because I'm putting this content out with all the energy of love and compassion to for my purpose. And what I do every single day, 7 days a week, is try to help people align mind, body, and spirit. And when one of those are out of alignment, they're all out of alignment. And so if I can help more people get back in alignment, get back in balance, then I have done my job in this dimension. And I've followed my purpose. And it has been a beautiful journey to have all of my clients make these great leaps and bounds. Not all at one time, but over the years. So I'm grateful for those of you who are listening. I always say, when I remind you, I remind myself. Helping other people figure out and Temet Nosce has been probably one of the greatest gifts of my life. And so thank you for letting me help you help yourself and to connect to yourself. So that is the end of this episode. Like I said, go check us out on Spotify or any of places where you listen to podcasts. And don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to support. And please, please share with your friends and family. If you are interested in my coaching services or mentorship, please go to thisreallifebooks.com, click on the coaching tab, and you can book an appointment. But if you do it, you better do it quick. I have a full calendar, but I do have a wait list. So if you don't see a slot that works for you, I can put you on my wait list for cancellations. And you get to that wait list by clicking on the chat box and just in the chat box on my website and say, hey, I'm trying to book an appointment, but you don't have any place for me. And then I will respond and put you on the wait list. Okay. And that's it. I am so grateful for you listening and have a blessed day.